Let's do a price analysis on Verasity, Trias, and Multivac. And in this analysis, what I'm going to do is show you a raw form of analysis so that you can see how I jump into the chart without having pre-looked at it. I have not planned what I'm going to say, and I didn't do that just because I'm lazy, or maybe I did. No, I did not. I want you rather to take a look at what's the first thing I look at, what's the second thing I look at, so on and so forth, so you can see an analysis come to life so that you can take with you what you like out of how I make an analysis, not just what my analysis is. Are you ready? Let's go. All right, we're going to start off with Verasity. I'm cheating a little bit. I have left on from my last video that I made on these three, maybe the penultimate though, that I made on these three is these bleed boxes and the happy box, all this kind of stuff up here, right? So I let everybody know quite a bit ahead of time before this big downside happened that, hey, you have a bleed box, and if Bitcoin keeps bleeding, this is where it's going. And look at where you got to bounce, right at the bleed box. And I made this analysis maybe back here or somewhere. Yeah, it was after this drop, and then it came back up, and I made the bleed box somewhere around early December, maybe December 6th, December 7th, something to that effect. After this drop was bigger than I anticipated, and I took a poll on Twitter asking people how well did I prepare you for that drop that was bigger than what I had anticipated, and it was pretty mixed reviews. It was straight across the board. So some very bad, some very good, some in the middle. It was an even mix. So what I did after that is I tried to warn people of further downside by making these boxes and explaining that, hey, if Bitcoin hits somewhere around 40K, it's going to probably hit this box again or go into it, which is what it did. And down here would be more representative of Bitcoin at 30K. Right? So all this green and yellow range is very similar to my macro range for Bitcoin. And hopefully you follow my Bitcoin stuff as well. But if I could slap on my Bitcoin chart right here and put on my macro range, take a look. It coincides with this. So this one box right here coincides with both the happy and the bleed box of Verasity. So let me find my Verasity chart. All right, so if Bitcoin is roughly in the middle of its box, which it is, then you could essentially consider this the point of control. If Bitcoin's close to the point of control, so will this most likely. However, that still means that Verasity will bleed because the moves down are bigger. It will lose more value. So if Bitcoin goes from the middle of this green box to the point of control in the middle, that percentage is smaller than what the percentage would be for Verasity, which is why I'm anticipating, as you know, if Bitcoin just stays in that range, altcoins are going to keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. And there's one more thing to note. If Bitcoin, doesn't get strong, in February, which I think is its first possible chance of getting strong, I don't think it's cut out for January, as I've already covered in my Bitcoin analysis. But if Bitcoin can't get on its feet in February, then what's going to happen is not only does it bleed in the way I just showed you with bigger percentages, but what I'm about to show you is going to also happen. Is this right now is equivalent to 40K, but if alts keep bleeding versus Bitcoin, this will be the new equivalent to 40K. So if Bitcoin keeps bouncing around like this, doesn't do anything, altcoins will bleed and bleed and bleed. And the next time, for example, if Bitcoin gets back down to 40K after having hit, let's say 48K or whatever the case, 44K, you might find Verasity down here at the middle of the next box, right? Am I making sense here? So watch out for that bleed effect. It could easily happen. All right. So that's my first, and you need to apply this to all of the three coins that I'm talking about today. All right. And I'll try to tag that part so that people in the other sections who just skip ahead can go back to that. All right. Okay. So in this analysis, I would say that, you're going to get bounces with Bitcoin. I would look out for this. I would look out for something to this effect. If Verasity gets over that trend line, let me zoom in here, and I'm on the daily chart on Verasity. If Verasity gets over that trend line and I, had bought a dip, I would, strongly, or if it gets to it, I would strongly consider taking some profits if I were in profit from that trade. So if you had paid attention to my bleed box a while back and you bought the bleed box, if it gets up here, that wouldn't be a bad point to skim off some profits and wait for another re-entry. That'd be a 40% trade. 40% trade is huge. Unless you're in altcoin season, which we're not going to get one for a bit. So forget about your 500% pumps. It's out of the question right now. So, I mean, you need to, live with the idea that 40% moves is huge, and it really might not take that many days to get down there. So from the point it hit the bleed box right here, if it hits in a couple days, that's 8 days for a 40% move if it wicks above. That would be how I'm playing this. And then after it hits that, once it comes down, I would be looking to reassess. What might happen is if it breaks out of this triangle, the next thing that Verasity would probably hit would be something more like a horizontal, or maybe I'll make a box here. It would probably hit somewhere. If it breaks up out of that triangle and not down, then I would go for more horizontals, and then I would be trying to pick some up on dips, and assuming that I think Bitcoin might go up the next day or the next 2 days, I might be buying dips on Verasity and selling into this box on the horizontal. So my first play, which probably won't last more than another week or so, would be this trend line, straight from top to bottom here. The second play after that's over, because you won't be able to play that much more after that trade, is because the triangle's almost ended, right? Is this horizontal, and that's pretty much how I would do things. I would definitely, be if I wanted to accumulate this coin using other people's money, that is pretty much how I would play it for the moment. And then I would try to look at something like only putting on one EMA, the 200, and seeing how price is interacting with different time frames. So this would be my third trick, and I would use this third trick integrated with my other two methods, all right, to try to get timing on dips, so on and so forth. So I would maybe start with the let's walk up. So I will start with something like the 15-minute chart. And if you're trading altcoins, I really don't know if I recommend the 15-minute chart, but if you have on the 200 EMA and you essentially, just take it off, right? That is similar to looking at, a 4-hour chart or an 8-hour chart. It's very, very similar. So when it has a positive slope, and if you put price back on, price has successfully used this as support with a positive slope, then you can say, okay, it's probably going to be in an uptrend that has a shelf life of 2 to 4 days or something to that effect. So you're probably going to get multiple bounces on this 200 EMA, and this would be the third way. I mean, this 200 EMA is special. I mean, it's really awesome. And so if you see it really flying up here, then what I would do is say, well, what if it breaks back through this orange EMA on the 15-minute time frame? Well, I would go up. So see how I'm walking up here? See where my cursor's above this area up here, right? So I started with the 15-minute, then I go to the 30-minute, and then I would look for bounces on. I would simply look which orange line on what time frame. Which time frame has the orange line that works the best. So you can see here the 30-minute is probably not it, because there's a lot of times that price is living between it. Like it's not just on it or under it, it's right at it too much. So I wouldn't use the 30-minute chart too much. The 15-minute actually looked not that bad. The 15-minute looked a lot better. So you can see here that, the 15-minute chart, price doesn't live hovering on the EMA too much. Rather, the wicks down. Here, let's zoom in. The wicks down finds support generally, and when it goes below, well, then he either uses that support or uses it perfectly as resistance. You see that? Here, let's zoom in. Watch. See how perfectly it uses it as support or just straight up resistance? So really, this is a good time frame with the 200 EMA. There's not much time where it lives doing this. So that's the stuff where it hovers on both sides, between candles, or candle after candle within a little run here. That's the stuff you don't want. So the least amount of this type of price action, rather this, and it gets it perfectly, or it uses that support perfectly. That's the time frame you want to use. And honestly, the 15 minutes looking really good. So if the 15-minute works, I find often that multiples of 4 usually works. So let's go straight to the hour to see how well this gets price. And you can see here that most of the time that price is touching or crossing through the 1 hour 200 EMA, it's it gets it pretty precisely. Look, wick, gets right above, uses it as support, kind of lives at it. So this is the type of price action that I don't like. I like it to be more exact, but when it does that that means it has a good chance of falling the other way. And then it comes back up, wicks to it, wicks to it, wicks to it. Really, the 1 hour 200 EMA works on most altcoins and even Bitcoin. So maybe if I were trying to trade this like intra week and multiple times a week, I would be going back and forth between the 1 hour 200 EMA and the 15-minute 200 EMA if I wanted to do multiple trades. And what you can see here is that price finally got above the 1 hour 200 EMA, and it screamed above. So it's probably going to come back down and cool off a little bit, cool its tits, an old saying that I said early on in my channel here. So that probably means it's going to come back and, find the 15-minute 200 EMA like that. So then I'll go back to the 1 hour, and that also meets the 1 hour. And so it's probably going to meet both those 200s at the same time to continue this little uptrend, assuming Bitcoin behaves. And that's the way I would play this. And so I would leave just that 200 EMA on and kind of be concentrating on this line at first until I get one profit point, see how it interacts. And if Bitcoin, continues its march up in the deep 40s or low 50s, something to that effect, then I would be taking profits more in this horizontal. And that's really all I got. But if you're coming here, for a possible analysis on when is this going to scream to the moon and altcoin season, that's not what I'm giving you. Right now, the money is playing is accumulating with short-term moves. That's where it's at, folks. Don't be looking for an altcoin season. You'd be making a mistake if you do. All right, so we're going to be jumping into Multivac next. Before we do, make sure you flip your darn phones or get flipped off. That means flip your phone and walk your finger all the way to the phone. Touch it nicely. Don't break your phone in excitement. This is the time to help me out so I can continue making videos for you. What will help me out even more is if you leave me a random comment down below, or you're going to step on a Lego. That helps me continue helping you. But what helps you the most is if you hit that bell. If you're subscribed, you haven't checked, hit the bell. Make sure that it's set to all alerts, because this is time-sensitive information. And my Bitcoin alerts actually will help you with your analysis on Verasity, Multivac, and Trias as well, because they generally move with Bitcoin. So make sure that bell is hit. We are in this together. If online communities are not your thing and you still want more exclusive content above and beyond YouTube, go ahead and hit the join button below this video to see more information on what you would be offered. Follow me on Twitter at @CostasVerdes2. If you want to be able to turn on your microphone and camera and ask me questions directly in live, check out the links to the Discord community in the description section. All right, so let's jump into, what did I say, Multivac? I think I said Multivac. All right, so let's jump into it. Okie dokie. So Multivac has bled out a little bit, but they got kind of bad news. There was some news release where, I don't know the details, something about they're reorganizing the team, moving operations to a different country, which honestly might not be a bad thing. Getting out of China is, moving your business operation out of China. I think that might have been the case of Multivac. So, that news, instead of getting a bounce here, it bled through and is maybe getting a bounce. So so zooming into this, and I have the ranges, right? So you can make these boxes too. I gave you the exact ranges, and this is versus the US dollar. So if Multivac can't get back above this line here, okay, and close multiple candles, it's probably going to test lower, and it's going to test somewhere here. So you can make essentially a point of control within a point of control, even though where the green box meets the yellow box, that's your mega point of control, right? But you can have what I might consider a 1/4 line down here. So I would make it a box because altcoins are highly volatile. I would put it somewhere like this. Ew, that's a big box. It's going to be a big box. There is a lot of wishy-washy in there. Yeah, so Multivac would have a chance of bouncing. I would put it more like this. And maybe more. Yeah, I would. That's a big middle box. My goodness. So what I'm seeing here is that was a lot weaker. It bled a lot more. So it has a higher chance, especially with that news and stuff, to hit this and then come all the way back down here. And you're sitting at 0.003. I mean, in this box. All right. And I know a lot of people were saying this to $1 and all that stuff, and now you're at a half a cent pretty much. But Did it hit a half a penny? Yeah, it almost hit a half a penny. I mean, it could get worse. Altcoins, you know, they fly up and they can fly down, and don't be surprised if and when it hits this box. And over the course of 2021, I would be very, very surprised if it didn't hit that box. Just a heads up. All right, so the bleed box is between 0.002 down here and 0.0085 up here. Now, if there is a capitulation, like I'm guessing perhaps in June or July, it'll get even worse, folks. Like it won't live down here, but it would wick down all the way to 0.0004. I'm telling you. I mean, you know, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but imagine how much Multivac you could buy if you're, you know, confident with the coin's fundamentals and all that stuff. So, but that's only if there's a capitulation. I don't know if there will be a crypto capitulation, because I think crypto's more moving in waves as opposed to, you know, a 4-year cycle. Like it essentially did 2 cycles in a row when miners had most of the sell pressure control, but now they don't. So we've already gone over that. I've been guessing that since probably March or April that there won't be any 4-year cycle, but rather waves. So if there is a capitulation with some stimulus in the global economy, right? Like the euro, something weird happens with the euro, or I don't know, another mega virus or whatever, it can come down here. But I don't know if that's probable. I would say more probable, you know, this box or the lower end is probable this 2020. And personally, if I were a fan of Multivac at that time, depending on my own research, I would be interested in becoming a buyer somewhere down here. But I would give it a few months personally. So that's my take on that. Now, if you want to accumulate this on the way down, right? And you know, the way I accumulate things when crypto's going way down is and this is my goal. I have the goal of, if things are going down, I want to be able to accumulate this coin well enough. So more Multivac, not more dollars, right? More Multivac. I want to be able to accumulate it well enough to where my US dollar value of that coin, of the amount I hold, stays level during severe downturns or prolonged downturns. That's how well I want to be able to accumulate. And if you can do that, and you're a big fan of this coin and you're comfortable, you know, with a little bit of trading, that is pretty much your goal. Because if you can have the dollar amount of a coin throughout, you know, a bear market or a bear, you know, or a winter, crypto winter, whatever you want to call this, if you can do that, that's just like holding Tether, right? But it's better than holding Tether if you can achieve that. It's a hard goal. I mean, like I have that goal with just one coin Dash, and so far I'm living up to it. So far, actually, I'm actually I'm accumulating enough where my dollar value is staying almost exactly the same as it's getting very aggressive to the downside. Now, is that all I do? Absolutely not. That's only one, you know, sliver of strategy within my portfolio. But if that's what you choose to do with altcoins because you're comfortable trading, and you just know that it's similar to holding Tether. If you can achieve that goal, right, which is not guaranteed, it's not easy to do. But when things start going up, right, you already have accumulated. So you can just let it rip, right? So you could trade to the downside. And if there is an altcoin season, you know, later this year, you could pretty much just let things rip and then 20 bag here and there and not trade as aggressively as, you know, things are going 1,000% up here and there. So it's not a horrible game plan. And I wouldn't do that with all of my portfolio. So that's not something I would suggest for all of your portfolio, but rather a sliver of your portfolio, or 15% or whatever, you know, portion this is for your portfolio. So, and you can apply that to all 3 coins. All right. So from a trading perspective, if I were trying to do this, you know, and just the same line here, I would say this looks like it has a chance. Honestly, it respects the daily 200 really well. So it might make a run up and hit that line that I just drew as the 200 EMAs there. So that's actually not a bad target at 1.1 cents. That is, if it were to get up there, and I were, you know, trying to, you know, pick some up right down here, because I think Bitcoin's going to do well. If I thought that, I would be personally a little hesitant to try that. But, you know, if you were to do that, maybe set stops, and then that would be my profit taking point. That'd probably be some pretty damn big gains if it can get up there. So that'd be a 70% trade in 18 days if that were to happen. And am I telling you that's exactly what's going to happen? No, but it looks like it might want to give that try up there. I think it's a strong possibility within the myriad possibilities of what could happen here. But I mean, to me, what's the weekly doing? I don't know if I wouldn't actually bet on that. So for this coin, I would put on the weekly. I think what might end up happening. So you can see the red line and the purple line here. I think price has a better chance of getting stuck here, and the red comes down to the purple and pushes it down, and then it hits that box. So it might wick up and hit that profit taking point of about at 1.1 cents. It could do that because the weekly candle would wick up, then close here. But in general terms, I would be looking for this triangle to form with the weekly 10 and the weekly 89, and I would expect downside. But those squeeze plays, even though that's kind of a reverse squeeze play, sometimes, avoidance of bearish squeeze plays. Okay, so it comes up here and avoids that cross. Sometimes those could be pretty powerful. And if Bitcoin were to get hot in February, which this would be February, something like this, it could really break up really hard only if Bitcoin does. But if Bitcoin keeps floundering around, it's probably going to form in this triangle, weekly 89, weekly 10, do something like this. And depending on Bitcoin, it's either going to go very far down or have a good rally up. So I would be looking at the weekly chart on this one. How else would I do this? I don't know. This coin looks pretty aggressive to the downside. I don't know if I would try to do intra-week trades with this to accumulate at this point. It's so much easier to do that when it's not that weak, because Verasity was just strong enough with just not big enough pops to try. So the 1 hour 200 doesn't look too sexy for this coin. What is it hitting? The 2 hour? No, the 30-minute? It might be using something like the 45. Yeah, the 1 hour works pretty well. I think the 1 hour is kind of the best candidate. So kind of like I was saying, right now, it uses this line as resistance a lot, right? So resistance. Once it finally gets back up, use that support, it'll give a push. Can it hold it? No. So this acceleration to the downside here, let's zoom into this part. This acceleration to the downside right here happened exactly crossing that EMA. This EMA is very important, right? I mean, it is for most altcoins. And I think it's mostly because it aligns relatively close to the daily 10 EMA. It's usually pretty close to it. So, after this big downturn, I mean, after that big move, usually it takes a few bumps on the head and you get above on the third or fourth try. So I wouldn't expect it to blast off yet. I would expect you need some higher lows and then it can do it. So in more immediate price terms, I mean, that's what I would be looking for. So let me draw in a price path here. If you do want to try to, this would not be a coin I suggest to try to use that strategy of accumulating with other people's money. But the best chance it's got is something like that, and then come back down to check it, something to that effect. And then the 1 hour 200 EMA is going like this. I think this is its best shot. And that's the orange line, right, that I just drew, the 1 hour. But I don't think it doesn't really have much of a chance to get up above it right now. Even if Bitcoin screamed, it's going to have to form a higher low and do something like that. So that's the shorter term time frame. It's looking pretty weak, folks. And I personally would be more interested in, buying back, because I sold all of mine at 1.2 cents back here in April, which, in retrospect, wasn't that bad of a move. Because it was actually my biggest trade of the year was with Multivac. This would be my personal, that's my personal opinion. So this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but that's what I got for Multivac. So let's move on to Trias. Trias is not. Oh, this is versus BTC. I was going to say versus Bitcoin, it's actually not looking that bad. I mean, if you look at something like BPRO versus BTC, it gave up in its entire run, right? So honestly, I'm glad I accidentally clicked that. That's not very bad. And is it below its daily 200, which is that orange line? Yeah, but it hasn't given up its run, right? So, I mean, take a look at, you know, I don't want to hate on BPRO because I'm interested in accumulating quite a bit of it. I just don't think now's the right time. If you look at BPRO versus BTC, look, this is before the bull run. It gave it all up. All of it. Right? So this is 2020. And then, so all this downturn right here, this wasn't necessarily BPRO going down in value, which it actually probably did, but it probably went down a little bit. But this is when Bitcoin started screaming and BPRO didn't. So therefore, BPRO went down versus Bitcoin, right? Because it, you know, it just floundered around as Bitcoin really did well. So yeah, BPRO gave up its whole run. I mean, versus Bitcoin, and Trias did not, right? Because the run was from here essentially, schmack. And relatively, Trias is more like up here still, way up here, right? Relative to that. So Trias versus Bitcoin, honestly, that's a really good sign. I'm not gonna lie. Now, could it just bleed out slowly and then succumb? Maybe. All right, so let's look at the versus the dollar chart. So again, this bleed box also got hit. It's not quite as nice as Verasity. It went a little bit below it. Shoot. Raw analysis, man. So you don't have, I mean, you kind of have this trend line here, but I think it'll break and hit the daily 200. So if I were trying to accumulate some down here, I would use the daily 200 to shave off some profits. That's what I would do. Because when you break below it that badly, you price action, even, you know, doesn't matter what it is, gold or petroleum or black market testicles, before the move continues to the downside, it likes to come up and test it, right? And which this might have been the test, but you might get a second test here. So I would say, you know, be careful for a move up to the daily 200, and then it uses the bleed box, the top of the yellow where it meets the green, as resistance, and then it works its way down to here, down to less than $4, 350, you know, about 370. That is kind of how I'm seeing this, and that is using my analysis of Bitcoin too. I don't think the market's going to heat up, like most people are still unfortunately thinking. So that is how I would roll with this. Now, on a short-term time frame, if I were trying to trade this and accumulate with other people's money, and I'm telling you, the 1 hour 200 EMA just works a lot. So it looks like the right thing to do here. So, you know, I mean, I would probably use the strategy. I wouldn't try to buy dips on this, or maybe even Multivac. I would wait until it got above, used it as support, maybe once or twice, and then I would look to be getting in and look for a rip up. But I wouldn't bet on a dip like right here. I mean, it looks like it just keep going down, down, down. I would wait until it got above, use it as a support, maybe try to get in some here, try to get in a little bit more on the next support, and then keep, you know, wait for a bigger move up, and then sell into the daily 200. So personally, if I wanted to accumulate this, you know, and I held all tether right now, for example, in that hypothetical scenario, I still wouldn't be interested in buying it. And if I did, I would set tight stops. I wouldn't buy it right now still, so no, I wouldn't do it. I would wait till this trend line got hit, something like that. Maybe forming a, you know, a little triangle here as it's trying to get power to get above the 1 hour 200 EMA. Then I'd pick up some more once it got above and bounced on it, and then I would sell into a rally up to the near the daily 200 EMA is how I do it. But right now it hasn't even used it as resistance yet. So what could happen is, you know, it could, even though it's got a nice higher low structure, it looks like it could just come up, wick past, maybe hit this line, fail, and then try it again, and then, you know, do it all over again. But usually after a big drop, you don't get above it on your first try coming up. I mean, on first pass, it's got a very, very low chance. So I would wait till it bumps its head at least twice maybe, and then, you know, go for another higher low structure and then go for it. And that would be my entry if I wanted to try, you know, to sell into the daily 200, assuming your analysis on Bitcoin is that it might rally up into the mid 40s or deep 40Ks. And what else do we have? The weekly. Let me check out the weekly real fast. Ooh, you got a down cross. That's not good. Usually a nasty cross. Ugh. Yeah, with all these crosses down, kind of you can see it a little better with this. As long as that red line's on top, I mean, it's not good. You know, until the green, you know, is on top, it doesn't really even have a chance to be in an uptrend. You know, and when this green line starts getting up in here and it starts squeezing the ribbons, I mean, that's probably just potentially a failed rally. So you know, and if you could just look at the ribbons without price, usually you need, you know, multiple like waves up before, and then it squeezes, all the ribbons compress, and then it goes up. But man, before it does that, it's you know, kind of like Multivac. I would probably be more interested in picking up Trias just under $4. Somewhere between, yeah, somewhere around $4 and just under. So I don't think it has much of a chance right now. But it could hit that daily 200 EMA first, which would be a big trade. That could happen first, and then it comes back down to the bleed box. That could be kind of how it works out. So, you know, I'm sorry I don't have the greatest news for you here, but you know, I just want everybody to not get caught into all of crypto Twitter and YouTube, or crypto YouTube with people saying the next altcoins that'll make millionaires. Don't get sucked into it, folks, because what I'm telling you is more statistically likely. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help. So check out this video here if you want to see how and why the carnage of the crypto market could last until roughly September of 2022 this year. And check out this video right here to look at my latest Bitcoin video so you can stay in the know with your altcoins. Click this if you're not subscribed, and we'll see you later. Just got Timified Worldwide. Peace.